Good morning, everyone. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of Yaakov Tzvi ben David, Aryeh, Leah bas Faivel, Siva bas Mordechai, Avram ben David, Slavin, Shon ben Yisrael, Moshe, Super, Vegel bas Reuven, Baruch, Shana ben Eleli, ben bas Faivel, from Shoshana bas Yaakov, Shmuel, Caleb bas Henoch, Yirmiyah, Yechiel ben Moshe, Eliezer, Sarah, Malka bas ben Yomin, as well as the Yortzites for today, which are as follows: Yaakov Moshe ben Nathan Sass, Chana Rachel bas Michael Davis, Chaim David ben Leib Denton, Rivka bas Shlomo Rose, David Yaakov ben Yisrael Gershon Novan, Avram Abba ben Leib Rosen, Hiram ben Shimon Halevi Goldschmidt, Freda Leiber bas Avram Singer, Shlomo ben Benjamin Mizel, Freda Leiber bas Avram Singer. Wish all of them long life. Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the slight delay. So today we are continuing with our great journey into discovering and understanding and appreciating the meaning of mitzvot. So we have already discussed and we've shared the insights from Rabbi Sachs, Zichrono Livrocha, and now I would like to share with you a different perspective, a deeper perspective perhaps, and it goes as follows. When we do a mitzvah, what exactly are we doing? It's not just an action. It's not just a good deed. The idea of a mitzvah is each mitzvah is an insight into the will of God. It is the will of God. A command, when a general gives a command, right? When a general gives a command, it is the will of the commanding officer that those underneath him, his subordinates, follow his instructions, his will. That is what a command is. And so it is with God. That is the way that we need to start seeing things. That when God gives us a command, a mitzvah, we are fulfilling his will. Now, if I was to ask you what God asks from us, the simple answer that many people would say, well, there's a lot that God asks from us. There's the positive commandments. There's the negative commandments. There's 613 positive, right? Then there's 613 mitzvot, 248 positive, 365 negative. And then you have the subcategories and the subcategories. So in short, if I was to ask you what God wants from us, you would all say a heck of a lot. But in truth, there is only one thing that God wants from us. Ma Hashem shoel mimach ki im lira. One thing God asks from us, and that is to be God-fearing. So why is it we have so many commands? The answer is, friends, because imagine you've got a very bright light bulb. This is the analogy of Rabbi Lev. Then it would be too bright, too intense for us to be able to focus and to look at directly. Therefore, what you would do is you would place a lamp shade around it. Then you're able to appreciate and to be able to look at the light that comes and to benefit from the light that comes from the bulb. And Rav Lev's analogy is as follows. He says, if you took that bright light and you put a lampshade over it, and then you cut out 613 windows, little holes in it, it would be a very holy lampshade. But you would also, through looking through each of those gaps, those holes, those windows in the lampshade, you will get an insight into the light that is behind it without being blinded. The light of the Almighty, the will of God, directly to look at it is too intense. His presence, his Shekhinah is too much. And therefore what God says is, by fulfilling my will, then you are able to come to a realization and an appreciation and understanding as to who I am and what I am. And therefore that is what we do. We build up a composite picture of what we are meant to be, the transformative impact of mitzvot are meant to have on us, give us a greater insight into God's will, who we are meant to be, how we can become more godly. That's through doing mitzvot. So there are 248 mitzvot, 248 limbs in a human body. Okay, don't start counting your limbs now, Colin. So there are 248 limbs. In other words, the mitzvot correspond to the human body. Okay. Now, obviously, we're not going to spell out. There are books that do it, that spell out how each of the limbs correspond with a specific mitzvah. But that is the concept, at least. And there are 365 negative commandments. don't steal, don't kill, don't commit adultery, etc. And each of them corresponds to one of the sinews of the thigh. Some of the sinews that we have in our body. So the most famous one I just mentioned is the sinew of the thigh, right? That we cannot eat. So there are things that are positive in us, and there are things that are negative. Okay, and therefore the totality of our being is meant to be used for serving God. Now, that's point number one. I'm sorry that we're going to go a bit deeper. Do you mind if we go a bit deeper? So the next point that I want to bring out and to share with you is going to transform your perspective. We mentioned already that a mitzvah is, I hope you can hear this with all the background noise, but as you can imagine, homeschooling. I think we've got 3 different schools, 6 kids or something in all the schools. Anyways, so there is the will of God in when we fulfill his will through the mitzvot. Okay? Now, what that means is there is the letter of the law and there is the spirit of the law. Okay, I can do something according to the letter of the command, and I can do something understanding what is the spirit, what was the intention behind it. So I have to do the action, but I'm also meant to try to think about the spirit, the essence of that action, and how that manifests the will of God. So I'll give you an example. Abraham, we know that he was on his way he was tested. The ultimate test was to slaughter his son, to be prepared to slaughter his son. Ultimately, God, of course, saw that he was willing to give everything up for God and even offer up his son, which was the antithesis of what Abraham had been taught God was all about, which is preservation of life, sanctity of life. And now he was being asked to sacrifice his son's life, his future. And right at the 11th hour, when Abraham has bound Isaac on the altar and he's about to perform God's command, God's will, what happens? A celestial being comes and says to him, Abraham, stop what you're doing, right? Now, Abraham takes Isaac off, listens to the will of God, and doesn't sacrifice him. But what Abraham did next is absolutely astonishing. We all know what happened next because we're reminded of it on Rosh Hashanah when we blow the shofar. What happened next? So what happened next was Abraham saw that there was a ram that was stuck in a thicket. He contemplated and thought to himself, what is it that God is asking from me? And the idea that he recognized was sacrifice. Sacrifice. He recognized that God didn't want human sacrifice, but the concept and notion of sacrifice was something that God had wanted. And therefore, of his own volition, he went ahead and sacrificed that ram. The rest, as they say, is history. So what I'm trying to suggest is not that we start going around looking for rams or that we are meant to start second-guessing God. But a deeper understanding of commands will ensure that we are able to, as it were, appreciate and to look into the mitzvot, to see that we're meant to arrive at a place where we see the light. There is the command, the letter of the law, and there is the spirit of the law. And we are meant to arrive, if we want those mitzvot, those commands, if we want Judaism to have a transformative impact on our lives, that we should become truly godly. And sometimes we perform a mitzvah and we don't see, for months or even years it can be, we don't see any real change. It's because perhaps that we are just going through the motions. We're doing it out of rote, out of habit. We're not actually allowing it to have that transformative impact on ourselves, on our lives. And that comes about when we are able to plumb the depths and to be able to understand what is in that mitzvah. What is it I'm meant to achieve? What is it I'm meant to achieve by an act of kindness, by charity, right? By hospitality, and so on and so forth. Each mitzvah, each action, whatever the action is throughout our lives and throughout our day, even the mundane, is possible to elevate it and to see God in it. But it takes contemplation, it takes thought, it takes thinking about another person as well. So that is the idea of mitzvot, and that is what we are trying to get across. So there is the letter of the law, and there is the spirit of the law. And we are meant to go above and beyond just going through the motions of the actions, right, of any one good deed, any one mitzvah. We are meant to try to look beyond that and to be able to try to plumb the depths so that we have a deeper connection to the Almighty and to our Judaism through our actions, and then it will have the transformative impact. Okay, that's the food for thought for this morning. Apologies if it was a bit deep and profound at this time when everyone's having their fruit and fiber. We carry on with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Okay, sorry, apologies to anyone who was offended by the last comment relating to fruit and fiber in the morning. I think David has porridge in the morning. Any other suggestions for a healthy breakfast, please send them my way. In the meantime, we carry on by wishing everyone long life, and we continue. Wonderful to see so many people. Just going to give a shout out to those that have said good morning to me: Michelle, Rachel, David, Estelle, Mervyn, Richard, and Colin. Good morning to you and everyone else, all our other viewers and listeners that are joining us this beautiful morning. So we continue with the memorial prayer. Adon Olamim Zocha Es Nishmos Leah Bas Faivel Harav Yaakov Tzvi Ben David Aryeh Sachs Tzivia Bas Mordechai Avram Ben David Slavin Shalom Ben Yisrael Morris Sipora Fegel Bas Reuven Baruch Shalom Ben Eleli Ben Bas Faivel from Moshe Shana Bas Yaakov Shmuel Caleb Ben Bas Henach Yirmiyahu Chio Ben Moshe Eliezer Sarah Malka Bas Binyamin Yaakov Moshe Ben Nathan Sas Chana Rachel Bas Michael Davis Chaim David Ben Leib Denton Rivka Bas Shlomo Rose David Yaakov Ben Yisrael Gershon Novan Avram Abba Ben Leib Rosen Iram Ben Shimon Alevi Goldschmidt Freda Leber Bas Avram Singer Shlomo Ben Binyamin Mizel Freda Leber Bas Avram Singer Shalchul Yalaman Bagan Eden Teimenu Chasam Lachein Balarachamim Yasrein Beseisa Kanafavi Alamim Amen. Long life wishes to all. Lastly, Refuah Shlema, Misha Berach. Of course, we know the numbers are still exceptionally high, although I have to say some good news. Many of those that were in hospital, some were rushed in yesterday, some have been in a few days, have come off ventilators, and some have even been released from hospital. Long may it continue, and please God, we'll be able to see in the next few days and weeks a Refuah Shlema to every single person who needs it. Amen. We wish everyone well. Please keep safe and look after yourselves. Please God, next Monday, I think it is, we are looking forward to a panel of distinguished medical practitioners, doctors from our community that are going to be sharing insights into the vaccine. Should we take it? Should we have it? Is it something good or bad? What are the dangers? We look forward to hearing from all of them. In the meantime, look after yourselves, keep safe, keep well. See you very